specific question is, if I was to ask your exes, what would they say about you? What would they say? And she said, well, they would say that I had an attitude and I talk back. That's just case in point right there. And she see absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I see a lot of women that see absolutely nothing wrong with that. Now, if you have your man and you're doing some of those things, it's abuse. Verbal abuse. Like, it's abuse. When women have attitudes, like, they make it seem like they think it's abuse.
It is not abusive.
It's very abusive. And that's the thing about it. Like, women know exactly what to say, to do, to press buttons, and they do it deliberately. And it's abuse. I don't care, like, how it's if you was to turn it around, you wouldn't think it was so funny, because when men do it to women, that's what y'all call it. Y'all call it abuse. He's trying to keep her in a space to keep her down. You can't get along without me. Don't nobody want you. You stupid. And stuff like that. So how is that not abuse?
Well, I mean, putting someone down and telling them they're always going to be alone versus you rolling your neck and talking back when someone tells you to, I don't know, bringing them a glass of water and you don't feel like getting up and you're like, hey, get it yourself. That's not abusive. But that's just an attitude. But that's not, you know what I'm saying?
But that's not what's being said, because having a slick ass mouth doesn't require you to say, hey, go get it yourself. That's not having a slick mouth or attitude. Those two combinations right there is the setup for abuse, because you're verbally abusing your spouse. You're verbally abusing
by telling him to get his own fucking water?
No, you're concentrating on one thing. Talking about
one. I'm just giving you an example of women having bad attitudes.
But that's not a bad attitude.
But you're saying that a bad attitude or the attitude that she's given is abusive to men.
When someone
I don't want to tread that direction.
When someone says that they have a slick ass mouth and they have an attitude, what I'm saying is, when you combine both of those together, that's being abusive to your man. Like, you're talking to your man that you're supposed to have respect for. But why would you be in a relationship having a slick ass mouth and an attitude towards your man, not just an individual, towards your man? And if you having that towards your man, let's just say, for instance, like I say, hey, ain't nothing wrong with a little smack every now and then. Like a little smack upside your cheek don't hurt anything. It's just a smack. But women get away with a lot of things because they know that most men, not all, but most men won't do anything about the verbal abuse that's coming towards their way. We turn the other cheek, we leave, we kind of leave that argument that you're trying to start, and because you're not receiving what you really want from us, then the verbal attacks come.
Well, I don't know whether this conversation is really about verbal attacks more than it is about just the way women deliver their tone, their attitude. I see where you have drawn a very thin line between having a bad attitude and being difficult, and that crossing over into being verbally abusive. I get it. I'm not sold on it 100% just because a woman who is not submissive and who talks back may not look at that as abuse, because I don't. I just look at it as being aggressive. I look at it as being non-compliant. And
so
a lot of those things. So why would you want to be in
a relationship? What's the sense of being in a relationship?
Well, let me say this.
Because you need to be by yourself if
that's
you have,
not necessarily. I wish I knew how long. I feel bad not knowing how long both sets of my grandparents were married. Both sets. And I know what you're going to say. Oh, that's a different time. Okay. But it's relevant. Both sets of my grandparents were married and stayed married, never divorced. Okay. Both of my grandmothers had smart mouths. Ironically, because I'm nothing like that. But my grandma would shut my grandfather down. He got up. If the yard needed to be cut, she would say, hey, the grass needed to be cut. Hey, the garbage needed to be taken out. And his ass would get up and do it right then. He didn't wait. I have a thing with that. Like,
they have weaker men. They had weaker men in that generation.
But neither one of my grandparents were weak men. I just think that
they was weak if they was taking that.
Well, I think the men back in that time still looked at things a little bit different too, because my grandfather called my grandmom mother. Yeah. That was their term. You know, he said that to her. And so
I don't know what's going on in your family.
Well, listen. I said this as an example because if my aunt or two aunts that saw this and my mom and her sisters saw both of their parents acting that way, and they went into their relationships, this is going to be something that they carry. And neither one of the people that I'm naming or referencing are abusive women. They're not abusive.
But that is abuse.
But they learned a way in which the foolishness, some of the things that the men were doing is determined to be foolish.
But that's abuse, though. Like, what you're doing is because you don't like the way that your life is or whoever it is that you got with. And then you start to resent that person. You develop an attitude. That attitude behind that tends to make you be, like, abusive. Like, is a woman, and I say this a lot of times, like, when you're talking about grandparents, and I'm just going to go your route. When you go grandparents, and then you talking about women who watch they mom say, hey, men ain't shit, and treat men like they ain't shit, and talk to them like they ain't shit. Well, that's abuse. And then they transfer that over to their abuse, and they think they can talk to men like that. So I'm trying to figure out, like, what are you saying? Like not being respectful, because at the end of the day, if it was in reverse, there wouldn't be a woman alive that would say, why is he talking to her like that? Like, that's crazy that he telling her to get her ass up and go get something to drink. What, your feet broken? Get your ass up and go get my drink. Like, if I was to say that in front of your friends, someone in your friends would say, now that's crazy the way he talking to you. But for you to think that it's okay for your grandma, okay. You just said it was okay.
I didn't say it was okay. I'm saying that I know that these two people loved each other. I know that now I can't say
that don't mean you don't abuse people.
I was about to say, I can't say he doesn't feel abused because he's not here to say, hey, I did feel abused. He's not here to speak on that. So I can't 100% disagree with you. But what I can say is that they both adored each other. It was just the way the relationship went.
Worked. It was abusive.
On both. and both. And the reason why I said it had to be the time, it was because both of my grandmothers were like that. Quick to cuss their husbands out. Quick. I mean, but those husbands still had 3 meals a day. Mm-hmm. The house was still clean. The kids were still taken care of. Mm-hmm. It was just that whatever they deemed foolishness was said. And it was said like...
So you fast forward to today. So you think that's acceptable for women to be doing that to men right now?
I do not.
That want to be in a relationship and think that it's okay for them to follow the pattern of what you're talking about to talk to men that way.
I don't think it's okay. I just wanted to first let you know that the behavior is learned. That's number one.
No, I know that.
Number two, more than looking at it as being abusive, I look at it as not being your man's peace. That's why I'm saying it's behavior and character, because these are most things that a man is not going to be like, hold on, honey. You know, these things are abusive. He would more say, that shit gives me a headache. I'm going to my homeboy house. Oh, I can't be around all this nagging and shit, so I'll be back. Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm saying? But the key words here is I'll be back. A person that feels that they're getting abuse most likely is not coming back. So if you can deal with what's going on, then most likely you're just dealing with little nuances, little attitude that she catches here and there, and it's disturbing your peace. Well, that's the narrative that I would like to roll with rather than it being abusive.
Gotcha. When I've talked to women who are being abused, they don't think they being abused either. Like, I've seen women in relationships where the men are actually physically abusing them. And if you ask them that, they don't know they being abused. They like, no, he loved me. No, it's okay. No, it's fine. So just because you sitting there telling me that, well, he didn't really say anything, he might have not known. Like, those are things about individuals that they take it because, well, this person loves me and they giving me some pussy and 3 meals a day, that it's okay. And I'm letting you know, like, it's not. Like, it's just not okay. Like, that's what would make me, like, if I was to see my granddad being handled like that by my grandma, someone who I love, my grandma who I love, I would still be like, granddad, what the hell is wrong with you?